A big thing for us as a band and me personally is our involvement in the gay rights movement and equal rights and really making a stand with it. And I guess it's something a lot of kids have a hard time understanding and are always wondering why we support it so much. And I guess it's for me it's a very personal thing, being that I was brought up by a gay man and my Uncle Mark, who was my mom's brother, and the biggest role model in my life. I was about 10 years old, and I remember my mom coming up to me, and she was so upset, and I think I was like 9 or 10, and she was crying, and I asked her what was wrong. I remember kneeling beside her bed and asking her what was wrong, and she was explaining to me that Uncle Mark was sick. She's like, he has HIV, and he had HIV, and now he has AIDS, and I didn't understand. I was so young, and I was so confused, and I remember I might have been turning 12. It was like almost 2 years from that day. I was turning 12 years old, and I wanted to spend my birthday with my mom and my sisters and my Uncle Mark, and my mom wanted to protect us and shelter us, and from the day she told me that he had AIDS, she kind of protected us from us and didn't want to expose us to us too much because she thought it would be too hard for us because we're so young. But I remember I begged my mom. I'm like, it's my birthday, and I want to hang out with Uncle Mark, and she brought us to the hospital, and it was weird. I probably hadn't seen him since he went to the hospital, and it was so disheartening because I started to see how people treated people with HIV and people with AIDS for the first time in my life, and how I guess it was the 90s, so it still wasn't, people weren't knowledgeable to what it was, and nurses and doctors refused to stop treating him because nurses didn't want to touch him because they didn't understand, and it was horrible. It was my first real moment of seeing what discrimination was, and it didn't make sense to me because I didn't see my Uncle Mark as a gay man or a straight man. I saw him as the man that raised me and taught me how to dress and how to brush my hair and how to ride a bike, and so it made no sense to me. And it was the first time I've ever felt so much anger and didn't understand why. But I guess you love someone and you don't want anyone to hurt them. You don't want them, you want people to see them the way you see them. And I remember, the doctors refused. They were just like, there's nothing else we could do for him. He got sent home, and basically they sent him home to die. And it might have been a year later, not even a year later, maybe like 8 months later, and my mom said, let's go see Uncle Mark, and I was like, yeah, I'd love to. I remember walking into his and my grandma's house, and half of his body was deteriorated, and it was just covered up with a blanket, and I remember my grandma saying she was so happy because he hadn't really talked in about 3 weeks because he couldn't, because it caused him so much pain. And I remember when I walked into the house, he called my name and put his arms up to hug me and kiss me, and he hadn't moved in 3 weeks. I remember my grandma telling me that, how happy it made her. And I remember leaving that day. And the next day I got home from school, and my mom was curled up on her bed, and she was crying and crying. And, I felt like I knew, but, you don't. Of course, I went up to her and asked her, and she told me that Uncle Mark was gone, and, she hugged me and wouldn't let me go, and I didn't understand, and I don't think I've ever been angrier than that ever in my entire life, and it was the hardest thing ever. It was like, and so when people ask me, why do you care so much about gay rights? Why do you care so much about equal rights? Because my Uncle Mark is a prime example of a beautiful human being. No matter what his sexuality was, people need to be treated like human beings, not a race, not their gender and not their sexuality. It should never matter. And the reason why I'll fight for gay rights to the day I die is for my Uncle Mark, because he's the best person I ever met in my entire life, and everyone deserves to have a beautiful life.